Star Wars Zero Company is a brand new video game entry for the Star Wars IP, being brought to us by the development teams over at BitReactor and Respawn Entertainment. Today, we are here to discuss everything we know about the game so far, what you can expect from a game like this, and if this game might be worth checking out for you. If any of that sounds interesting, you want to see more in-depth coverage of this game, or you're just a fan of keeping up with everything big in gaming, make sure to show it off by scrolling down and hitting that like button and subscribing to show me you guys want more Zero Company content. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Star Wars Zero Company was teased and mentioned for a reveal a couple of weeks before it actually got officially announced on April 19th during Star Wars Celebration, a fan event for everything Star Wars that, luckily enough, I actually got to attend this year live, which included the panel covering the reveal for Zero Company itself. In the opening trailer, we get introduced to Zero Company, a ragtag group of individuals that are a special forces group that operate in the shadows during the Clone Wars era, whose purpose is apparently to combat separatist threats to the galaxy during the Clone Wars. They are led by their leader, who you will be taking control of, along with all of the members of Zero Company, being a disgraced former Republic officer named Captain Hawks, who at first anyways, is joined primarily by 5 other members. First of which is a clone trooper named Trick, who is a longtime comrade of Hawks who is apparently known for his wit and battle-damaged armor. After that, we have a Jedi Padawan named Talrea Vakos, and is on this group to complete her fallen master's final request. Next on up, we have a Mandalorian gunslinger named Cly Kalervo, who is one of the last surviving members of the ancient clan Verminoth, seeking to fulfill a personal vendetta. Last, for the humanoid characters, we have an Umbran named Luco Bronk, a sharpshooter who harbors resentment towards the Republic for their invasion of his home planet. Last but not least, we can't exclude M3VO, a droid pilot who serves as the pilot for Zero Company's ship called the Caisson. This doesn't include the R-Series astromech we see in the trailer, who at this point is unnamed, but will be completely customizable according to the 30-ish minute panel held at Star Wars Celebration. Now, you will be able to fully customize the look at the very least of Hawks, along with their race being either human or alien, and if you do choose alien, it spans across different species across Star Wars lore. Along with this, you'll be able to customize Hawks' in-game class. It is a possibility you could do this with the rest of the cast, but that isn't confirmed. You will, however, be able to do this with other characters recruited throughout our playthrough of Zero Company, and they will be customizable to how you see fit. Seeing as these types of games are very diverse in classes and what they can do, it's likely all the starter characters and the main cast are all different classes to cover your bases at the start of the game. When talking about astromechs, they did tease that you could even have an all astromech team in doing missions, but that would affect the gameplay and more than likely make everything a lot more harder if that's the path you want your Zero Company team to go down. Now, moving on to gameplay, Star Wars Zero Company is aiming to be a turn-based tactical RPG in the same vein of something like XCOM, which I'm sure you've heard this comparison before, but what does that really mean? Well, the gameplay for XCOM is structured really in 2 major parts. There is a base building and resource managing side of the game, where you gradually progress your base to allow more and more gameplay and loadout enhancements for the actual squad you use in turn-based sections. And of course, there is the turn-based section of the game I just mentioned that includes the characters in the squad that you can level up, where there's a pretty big map with Fog of War that you gradually uncover with your team until you encounter enemy forces, as you try to handle certain objectives on the map. These objectives can vary between a couple of predetermined ones, from taking down all the enemies on the map, to grabbing and extracting a VIP or prisoner of war that's needed for that particular mission, all the way to planting a bomb and taking down an important enemy structure, which all usually end in the same way, which is by getting your team to a safe place or holding off enemy forces until your entire team can successfully extract from the area. These maps are usually played in waves where you're able to move all of your friendly units for the allowed movements and actions that they all have before you hand the turn over to the AI enemy units, where they proceed to do the same thing and vice versa. actions and damages are usually calculated by percentage chances to hit, which are done by RNG and have variables that impact these percentages, like if the enemy is behind half or full body cover in the battlefield, and if that enemy unit has enhanced speed or dodging that could lower your overall chance to hit that enemy. When it comes to the base building side, there is actually sneakily a lot to manage in these types of games. You expand your base to build rooms that will be designated to researching or taking on things you will need for your squad mates, like researching upgrades for units, things to keep your base up and running, and equipping them with researchable upgrades, weapons, enhancements, and the like to take down increasingly powerful and varied amounts of enemies as you progress through the story and progress your base to help you do so. And the base is where you can customize your character's abilities, loadouts, all the way up to how they look, along with their first and last names. At least that's how it works in something like XCOM. Oh, by the way, I think it should be mentioned that there are varying difficulties, of course, and normally units and characters are allowed to be killed off permanently, meaning making mistakes on the battlefield could put your favorite and most valuable units out of commission for the rest of your playthrough, in which they are then only shown off in a memorial section of your base after you've killed them off. Now, how much of this do I think you should expect to be mechanics and gameplay in Star Wars Zero Company? I would say it's highly likely most, if not all of it, will be how Zero Company ends up functioning. From what I've seen of the menus in the base, the map, and of the turn-based gameplay, besides the different user interfaces, it looks like a very similar style as to what they've done with something like XCOM before. My thing is, I would also hope that along with bringing along implementations from the base game of XCOM 2, I hope they would also bring along some of the systems from its DLCs that they had for the game. Some of those things would include bringing across even more classes and enemies than before, a sort of nemesis type of gameplay system with predetermined sort of bosses that can shock drop into random missions, along with predetermined story points with chances to eventually take them down once and for all. For Zero Company in particular, I could see this being enhanced or prototype units of enemies from the Separatist front that never saw the light of day in the series so far, because then they can say Zero Company was just able to stop like a mass production of a new droid type from being made, or giant constructions, variations on dangerous vehicles, etc., and that's why we're seeing them here in this game, and we've never seen them before. Speaking of which, when it comes to enemy types, Respawn Interactive and Bit Reactor have a lot to choose from, besides just the already revealed B1 and B2 battle droids. As mentioned before, this story takes place during the Clone Wars era, meaning every enemy from that time frame is a possible enemy type to appear in the game. This includes different factions, races, and droids from all over the galaxy, like Tusken Raiders, Geonosians, usual Separatist forces like the enemy droid lines we already know of, underground organizations like the Pikes and the Hutts, and much, much more. Depending on what parts of the galaxy Zero Company ends up visiting throughout the duration of the campaign and side missions, they have a chance to give us a plethora of different enemies. This gives Zero Company the opportunity to keep gameplay fresh, with new opportunities for different gameplay mechanics to be sprinkled in throughout your journey with the crew to keep you on your toes. For instance, it could have you deal with Geonosians better in one particular way, while dealing with droids maybe you have to have different types of weapons or different tactics to be able to best them. So far, Star Wars Zero Company is confirmed to be coming out for Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC sometime in 2026, with no mention of a Switch or Switch 2 port as of yet. Although personally, I do think this style of game would fit perfectly for handheld consoles, even if it ends up coming at a later date. Overall, Star Wars Zero Company looks like a game where if you love the Star Wars universe, have always wanted some customizable troops, and are a fan of or don't mind turn-based combat, that this game would be right up your alley. There is no indication on how good the plot will be, so if you're more of a story-based person, I would wait to hear more about what direction this plot will be going overall, and see if the plot is taking more of a backseat in regards to fine-tuning the gameplay. If none of these things sound enticing though, or you're just straight up not a fan of turn-based tactics games, this could be a hard pass for you. Personally, I'm not very good at turn-based tactics games, but I still like them a lot. So I'll more than likely be checking this one out right here in live streams on the channel once the game does officially release. Zero Company has the opportunity to not only be a new addition to the turn-based tactical genre, but to take it by storm and funnel in a lot of new fans through the Star Wars IP, since people will be curious and want to check it out just because of its ties to the franchise. I'm curious to see how in-depth the story will be with future reveals and what cool new things it will potentially bring to the table. That about wraps it up for the day though. For everyone who's made it this far, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed or found it entertaining, make sure to scroll down and make that like button glow so we can reach our like goal of 25 likes for this video. While you're down there, consider subscribing as we'll be covering Star Wars Zero Company as updates come out. And make sure to check out some of my other gaming content, including my coverage of Exodus, a brand new and ambitious space RPG slated to come out in 2026, and other gaming coverage including hit titles like Resident Evil Requiem. As always, your support through your viewership, liking, and subscribing is always greatly appreciated and helps me out tremendously against the galactic threat that is the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to catch you guys next time. Peace!